A secret deal is happening right now in Pakistan that will change the map of the Middle East forever. For the first time in 40 years, America is now doing what no one has dared to do before. And for the first time, America is entering negotiations with Iran to protect American interests, not Israeli ones. Is the agreement really close? Could we witness a Saudi-Iranian alliance? Are there really states that will disappear from the map of the Middle East? What are the final hours of these negotiations like in Pakistan? We have very important details today. Stay with us. And welcome to our meeting today, God willing, in this intense episode of the Opinion series, which we always dedicate to following the latest developments in the conflict taking place in the Middle East between Iran and the Epstein Alliance. Our topic today starts with the negotiations that have now begun in Pakistan between Iran and the United States, which only took place after the Iranian request was approved. A request that Iran presented as a condition for starting these negotiations. So the first condition was to stop the Israeli attacks on Lebanon, and this became clear today as the Israeli shelling on all Lebanese territories stopped and there was no shelling at all. Only after the negotiations began, after Israel made sure that the negotiations had started. This is not strange, it was expected, because the Israeli side is a party that is devious and evasive in negotiations, one that breaks agreements. In other words, it is a completely unreliable party, and this is well known, historically speaking. And the second Iranian condition was the release of the frozen Iranian financial assets. It is clear that America reached a compromise with Iran on this condition, which is to release these funds gradually throughout the stages of the negotiations, which may continue for days. So, America wants to show that it really wants to negotiate and reach a fair agreement with Iran. It lifted the freeze on only a part of these funds, meaning just as a start about $6 million, and as the negotiations continue, it will release the other funds. So today, no one can exactly determine the amount of these frozen Iranian funds. Because there are Western reports that say it's about $120 billion, but there are Russian reports that say the amount of these funds reaches $1 trillion, which means $1,000 billion. So in general, whatever the amount of these funds is, America agreed to it, and now it has started to gradually unfreeze them. Maybe this small amount today is $6 million, but it's a very important amount for Iran, and this, as I said, is just the beginning. So pay close attention, these Iranian assets have been frozen for more than 40 years. And pay close attention, America used to release only a part of these funds with every agreement it made with Iran, with every agreement it signed with Iran. That happened in 1981 after the Algiers Agreement, and it happened in 2015 after the nuclear deal. But today, the release of these funds is starting for the first time before signing any new agreement. This is happening for the first time. I mean, just for negotiations, this is happening for the first time. And this exactly confirms how Iran today is actually imposing its conditions as it should, and how America is forced to fulfill them to implement all the Iranian conditions, to protect American interests in the region. Because if things, as I explained to you in previous episodes, if things had escalated to cause total destruction in the region, American influence and interests in the region would have been wiped out completely. They would have ended for good. So today, these negotiations in Pakistan are very different from the negotiations that took place in the past. The most important of these differences is that today Iran is negotiating from a position of strength, negotiating from the standpoint that it emerged victorious in this war. This is also one of the most important differences. Dear viewers, it is that America is entering these negotiations this time to protect American interests, not to fulfill Israeli demands. This is a very important shift that did not exist before, I mean today. This means that America will negotiate with Tehran only to protect American interests in the region. This will be a positive point in favor of Iran, as it means preserving American interests in the region. In exchange for what? In exchange for meeting the Iranian conditions? It's possible, but when Netanyahu gets involved and Netanyahu's demands come in, there won't be any agreement at all. Iran said today that the American negotiators should put America first in the negotiation process, not Israel first. This means that the Iranians also want to reach this agreement, provided that the agreement protects both Iranian and American interests, not Israeli interests. So this is the new difference. This is what's new today. That's why today we see that in the Gulf region there is a division among the countries. For example, what Saudi Arabia wants from these negotiations is different from what the UAE wants. Saudi Arabia is only seeking stability. Saudi Arabia's interests are not connected to Israel's interests, neither in terms of security, economy, nor anything else. So any agreement between Iran and the US would be in Saudi Arabia's favor, and Saudi Arabia is probably the most ready in the region to form a partnership with Iran, especially after Iran has proven today this strength, this military capability, and this great strategic success, this major strategic victory in this war. Saudi Arabia is capable of reconsidering its ideological and strategic alliances, among other things, and is able to change the equation in its favor by forming a partnership and perhaps even an alliance with Iran, provided that there is an agreement between Iran and the US. I mean, just imagine if that happened. Imagine if the current Saudi-Pakistani alliance also included Iran, Turkey, and Egypt. What would the Islamic world look like? Saudi Arabia is capable of turning the tables and taking advantage of this new shift in its favor. But when we talk about some countries like the Emirates, it's a completely different matter, because we find that the interests of the Emirates are completely tied to Israel and Israeli interests. Economically, in terms of security, strategically, and so on, everything in the Emirates has become linked to the survival of the Israeli entity and to Israeli influence. Therefore, the biggest concern for such countries is that an agreement might happen between Iran and America. I have said this before and I repeat it today. Some countries will disappear from the map as a result of these developments taking place in the Middle East, as a result of what is coming in the Middle East today. Dear viewers, there are new indications that confirm the negotiations may yield positive results, meaning we may actually witness a new agreement. Among these indicators, for example, or the most important of these developments, which happened just today, is that these negotiations in Pakistan have shifted from indirect negotiations to direct negotiations. At first, the communications were taking place indirectly. Iran would sit with Pakistan, convey what it wanted, then Pakistan would pass these demands to America, America would respond, and the response would be relayed back to Iran. This is how the communication was happening. But the big and unexpected shift that happened today, which was not anticipated at all, is that the negotiations have become direct, with both Iranians and Americans sitting at the same table, with the Pakistanis present. This is considered a qualitative shift in the level of talks, because it confirms that there is a preliminary understanding and that a major development is taking place. It means that America has actually come to sit down with Iran to make Iran a new partner for it in the region. Also, what confirms this is that neither Iran nor America came to negotiate with a small delegation. It is said that each delegation came with about 80 people, including military, security, legal, intelligence, and economic experts. Moreover, this did not happen randomly. This happened because there had been previous communication, meaning there were signs that an agreement was coming. The main political delegation is led by the head of parliament, Mohammad Ghalibaf, and Trump's deputy, J.D. Vance. The first is from Iran and the second is from America. It's clear that they agreed on everything, and that's why they will return to their homes today. While the technical delegation, which as I said is made up of military personnel, legal experts, economists and so on, will remain in Pakistan to negotiate the remaining fine details. And this really confirms that the parties are strongly approaching a historic agreement. An agreement that serves American interests in the region, perhaps even strengthens American interest in the region, and makes Iran a power. Therefore, if everyone notices today, despite the bombing in Lebanon, Iran did not follow through on its threat to stop the negotiations or to return to war. So if Israel violates this agreement and this truce, why is that? For two reasons. First, because it knows there are parties who only want to make it fail. And second, because this upcoming agreement or these negotiations, as I said, are proceeding according to arrangements and demands set by Iran, exactly, meaning they are moving to serve Iran's interests. Meaning that Iran does not want to miss this opportunity to serve Netanyahu's personal interests or to serve the interests of one of these countries influenced by Netanyahu. Rushing in does not always serve American interests. Politics requires a kind of intelligence. You need to know where to draw the red line when escalation is possible and when escalation should be avoided. You need to know exactly what games your opponent is playing, what they're thinking and what they're planning. So if the negotiations are achieving Iranian interests and demands and are proceeding according to these foolish interests and demands, only a fool would walk away from these negotiations because there is a disaster that has befallen Lebanon. It's clear that the war in Lebanon will stop, and this is strongly on the table in the talks with America and all the countries of the world want this. They want this war in Lebanon to end. But this will happen in the upcoming agreement after achieving Iranian interests or demands. And there will always remain, I believe, this question. Will Netanyahu abide by the decision that America makes in this agreement that will be reached between Iran and America? Here, maybe then we will talk about other assumptions and about other proposed scenarios which may eventually lead us to the scenario of collapse next year. So in general, we will wait, we won't rush, we will wait to see what happens in the next few hours. How will these negotiations go? How will things turn out? And we won't come back to this topic, God willing. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings. See you next time.